Welcome to the Black Script Storytellers. My name is Kevin Marable, and today our guest has worked on many of our favorite TV shows and sitcoms like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Wayans Brothers, behind the scenes as a writer and producer since the 90s. He's currently a co-producer slash writer for the animated series Good Times, as well as a consulting producer and one of the writers on The Upshaws, both of which are on streaming on Netflix right now. Devon Shepard is with us. Devon, how you doing?
Man, I'm fantastic, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Can't complain. Can't
Yeah,
complain. All right.
fantastic.
So there's a question that I like to start every interview with. It's a very simple question, but some
Okay.
might find it difficult to answer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All
Fire
right.
away.
That question is, who is Devon Shepard?
Um, Writer, husband, father, um, um, just a guy who's 10 toes down on what he believes in.
Hmm.
Real dude. Um, that's pretty much it, man. That's me in a nutshell.
Okay. I
Yeah,
feel that.
that's
I
me
feel
in a
that.
nutshell. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you are a writer and producer, and you've been in the business since the early 90s. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got your start?
It's I'm gonna shorten it because it's kind of a long story. But I was discovered
Okay.
on in a barbershop. I used to do stand up. I had graduated from Cal State Northridge.
Uh-huh.
I was a PA. I was doing stand up. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I really went to school to be a technical director, and editing. Post was really what I thought I was going to be doing.
Mhm.
Um, I was discovering a barbershop at my friend's because he had a barbershop on 43rd and Crenshaw. Right around the corner was the Comedy Act Theater. So if you sat in this chair, I'll come
Mhm.
in there and hit you with a couple of like jokes because I was, working on my material, walk
Yeah.
around and do my little 5 minute set. And a guy named Rob Edwards, who created this show called Out All Night. He
Okay.
went on to do Princess and the Frog, got nominated for an Oscar for that. Another
Right.
guy named Benny Richburg, who was a producer on Martin. Another dude named Kenny Snyder, who was Will Smith's cousin,
Mm.
all came down to get a haircut because Rob was from the suburbs and never got a real haircut from a black barbershop. So
Wow.
they brought him down there, and he was, back then the writers wore Argyle sweaters,
Mm.
Dockers, penny loafers. He came in, lit him up, and he thought I was the funniest thing ever, and said, "You should come write for my show."
Really?
And yeah, and I've always wanted to write because I was a huge fan of Norman Lear's.
Mhm.
Uh, Bigger fan of Susan Harris, who wrote Soap and Golden Girls. Love comedy. And I was like, I don't want to write. I want to kind of do the stand-up thing, figure where this editing's going. He's like, there's not a lot of black writers writing at the time. He says a million stand-ups, but not a lot of writers. And so I was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, let me go over there where, the pond is big and I can swim around a little bit, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So um, he told me to write a spec script. I didn't know what that was. He says a sample of your writing. I ended up writing like 4 random scenes of Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
Mhm.
and he said, first of all, this is not a spec script. He said, but I could tell the way you wrote your scenes that you know how to set up a joke and pay it off.
Mhm.
And they, long story short, they hired me to be a writer's trainee on a show called Out All Night with Vivica Fox and
Yeah.
Dwayne Martin and
Wow.
Morris Chestnut, who was my best friend's roommate in college. So I knew Morris from Cal State Northridge. That was my dog. So um, that's how it started in '92, and then I've been writing ever since.
Man. Yeah. Has a story ever been told about that barbershop and how many people that's in the business? Uh,
Nah, nah, it was just something that happened to me, as far as I know. But
uh,
Comedy Theater was literally around the corner, so that was like that's like the Rutgers. If
wow.
you know basketball, that's like the
Yeah.
Rutgers of comedy back then. Everybody went through there. Every black comedian went through there. If you wasn't really about your business, you didn't go in there. Robin Harris was a host. He was tough and he was
Wow.
funny, and
Yeah.
so um, I was cutting my teeth in that spot. And it just so happened God saw it another way for me to get in, and
Mhm.
here I am, 33 years later.
Yeah. Okay, so before you became a writer, you wanted to do stand up, and you were running the ranks, so to speak, to to try to get there. Um, what made you want to get into stand up comedy?
Um, Honestly, it was like I was pretty funny,
Uh-huh.
and what I didn't realize what I was doing, I was always writing, even
Mhm.
back then. So I'm writing concepts and material, and I would just go up there and do it, um, and I did it primarily because people suggested that I do it. It
Mhm.
wasn't a dream of mine to do that, to be honest with you. It was something like, oh, people say try this. You go, okay, you starving, trying to
Right.
figure out who you are as an artist.
Mhm.
And and I was doing okay. I was doing pretty well. I never bombed, but I didn't like get standing ovations either. I had 5 minutes at the most.
Mhm.
And I didn't really. One of the reasons why I stopped doing, I didn't really, I realized I didn't really love it. You have to be in there every day and grinding, and I couldn't tell the same joke every night. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I would rewrite my material every night, and just to keep it fresh in my head, so I didn't get bored. And so that's how it ultimately started. And I was funny enough to get an opportunity to become a writer's trainee somewhere else. And I think deep down that was what my passion was anyway.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Interesting. It's
Yeah.
always interesting to hear people's backstory and get to know how they got their start into the business, whether it's conventional or unconventional. It's
Yeah.
always interesting to know that.
Yeah. Mine was super unconventional, man. God sent them dudes down to 43rd and Crenshaw. We in the hood, and they
Right.
coming in. Rob Evers is coming with his corny. Yeah, that's my dog to this day, but I had to let him have it. And to his credit, he wasn't intimidated by what I was doing. As a matter of fact, he saw the value in what I was doing. So I'm forever grateful.
Right.
I tell him that every time I talk to him. To this
Yeah.
day, I say, I'm not here without you, bro.
Absolutely.
And still a good friend of mine, doing some wonderful things now as well. And so it just, and that's where I come from, people helping each other, man. And so I'm
Exactly.
always
Mhm.
um, dedicating some time in my life to always reaching back and helping people. So because somebody helped me, so
Yeah.
that's always going to be a part of my DNA.
Absolutely. And that's what it's really about, is that we definitely have to look out for each other, reach back,
Yeah,
share the knowledge, don't gatekeep so much. That's the reason
yeah,
why there's so many people who are lost that's trying to get into this business, trying to figure it out. They don't really know how to navigate, and uh,
yeah,
part of what I'm trying to do is open up those gates, so to speak, by providing some education and shedding some light on what it is
yeah,
that everybody does, and that there's several different avenues that you can take. You don't just have to be in front of the camera, you can also be behind the camera, whether you're
hmm
a writer, you're part of the crew, what have you, so
That is my biggest. My biggest thing is really I got a thing called Project Blue Light that I'm working with actually LAPD. We're going down to Watts next month
yeah.
and teach writing to younger kids, starting them at a very young age. And to your point, everybody don't have to be in front of the camera.
Right.
There are people who can do wardrobe. There's brothers and sisters who can do set design,
Hmm.
hair and makeup. It's just so many other aspects to the entertainment business that we can really use more people of color and more interesting people with interesting ideas and thoughts and perspectives that they can add to it. Because I'm getting older, so the things that I'm doing now, my perspective is different than where it was in '90s and
Right.
2000s. So
Right.
as you grow, your perspective and things change, and so who's speaking to the next generation of young folks
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Now I'm still nice with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? I'm still nice with it,
Right.
but as I get over more of my interests and perspectives is more shifting more in another area um,
Okay.
in terms of writing comedy and things like that. So I'm always eager and trying to grab the next. I want to find somebody like somebody found me and
Right.
put them on. I teach at Columbia University. Either in the spring or fall, depending on my schedule. And I teach screenwriting there as well. I'm also mentoring young writers with the Writers Guild program. So
Okay.
I'm pretty busy trying to discover new talent.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Okay. All right, cool. So now you've been a part of many of our favorite shows growing up, and I'll
Mhm.
go through them again, such as Fresh Prince of Bel Air, The
Yeah.
Wayans Brothers, Damon Wayans' show called Damon,
Yeah.
Mad TV,
Yeah.
Cedric the Entertainer presents, All About the Andersons, One on One, Everybody Hates Chris, Weeds, House of Lies, The Soul Man, The Neighborhood, Being Mary Jane, Kevin Hart's True Story, Miss Pat's Show, and the newly animated series Good Times and The Upshaws.
Hmm.
Uh, that's quite a resume to
I've been
have.
busy, bro.
Yeah,
I've been busy, man.
yeah, that's a blessing within itself,
Yeah.
man, because that's
Yeah.
like half of my childhood going into, early 20s, really,
Yeah.
for
Thank
me.
you, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can sit back and say I've watched plenty of those shows, and really did not know who was involved besides
Yeah.
the folks that are in front of the camera. But now it's awesome to get to know the people who are involved behind the camera and
Hmm.
be able to showcase what it is that you've done and that you still do. You know,
Right. I'm humbled by it. So yeah,
absolutely.
I'm
Now,
humbled by it.
building relationships is a large part of this business. I'm curious to know, how does your name float through the channels to get selected to work on such projects as a writer?
Um, even now I'm at showrunner level now. So um my thing was, my blessing was I didn't know anything, meaning I didn't come up through a corporate system. I didn't come up through this is how you're supposed to speak to white people. And this, like, I came up, like, when you talk about the 90s was very racist.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm fresh off the streets. I'm coming from a rough background a little bit. I ain't gonna get all into all that.
hmm,
And so I'm just a straight up honest dude. And so I didn't know you weren't supposed to be that coming in. So um, I had a couple of run-ins early in my career where it could have went left, to be
hmm,
honest with you.
hmm,
I was, pulling dudes in the parking lot, like, let's talk about it like this. If this is how you want to get down.
yeah,
And what came out of that though was people loved my honesty because I wasn't Hollywood. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even know how it was supposed to work. And so I just responded how I respond.
hmm,
And what it did for me in a positive sense was, oh, Devon's gonna tell you straight up, you know. More importantly, I had to know how to write. That was the most important thing. And um, I was I was, without knowing it, I picked up the writing game pretty quickly, and I studied a lot. It wasn't just natural. I literally, you don't see it back here, but I used to have a room that had over probably 400 scripts in here,
wow,
and I would just read scripts all day. And if I would go to the movie theater and I liked the movie per se, I would call my agent, go find me that script. They would
yeah,
send it to me, and I would sit and I would read it to see how it went from page to screen.
hmm,
And I did that with everything. We used to get a list of all the pilots, which are new shows that are coming out in the fall, or shows that are considered for the fall schedule.
hmm,
And you can get anywhere between 150, 200 scripts. I was sitting and the best of my ability to try to read every single pilot to understand writing style, context, perspective, humor, different types of humor,
right,
how somebody would set up a story, how somebody would arc out characters. I just threw myself into it. So probably around my fifth year, Mad TV is probably where I hit my stride.
mm,
Um, because when you first come into the game, you try to write like your favorite writer. Like for me, I want to write like Norman Lear. So,
yeah,
so everything that I do have a social commentary to it. There's not nothing I don't do that doesn't have a social commentary about the conditions and plight of Black people.
hmm,
And I remember that got me got me in a little trouble at Fresh Prince, but ended up being a blessing. 'Cause I ended up writing an iconic episode there, and I got an Emmy nomination at Mad TV because
wow,
of something that
wow,
I wrote. So, um, and so through all of that, he can write, he's funny, he can tell jokes. My name would be in the room before I get there.
really,
And yeah, my reputation was in the room before I ever walked in. And so they go, oh, if you want somebody real and funny, you need this dude. And white people love the fact that I would, because I would say say my thing. I was about to curse. I would say my say my
You good?
thing.
You good? Yeah, be
Okay,
yourself, man.
I would say my shit, and I can back it up because I was a student of television.
Hmm.
And I would talk to them about characters. I would talk to them about story structure. I would talk to them about the nuances of my perspective, and I was able to articulate that. And so, not only was I was a straight dude, I was funny,
Hmm.
and I knew how to write. I had strong first drafts. That's the biggest thing about me. A lot of that came from fear because I would watch people, turn in first drafts, and one of the biggest things biggest mistakes you can have is a showrunner having to rewrite you. So,
Okay. Yeah.
and so I would watch people who were way more seasoned than me turn in bullshit. And I was like, that ain't gonna be Shep. So I would agonize over my first drafts to where my first drafts was always strong, at least
Right.
structurally. You can change dialogue. Changing dialogue is easy. You can slide things out, slide things in, but they have to restructure and
Mm.
rewrite. That's a long night. And they don't hire people to do that. They hire you to come in and give strong first drafts to keep it efficient and keep it easy. And
Right.
so
Right.
I just became very cognizant and very obsessed with turning in strong first drafts. And so that also was the thing that propelled me up the ladder a lot faster because they go, oh, he gonna come in and drop off a strong first draft. You ain't got to rewrite it. And
Right.
so when they go that's easy work for a showrunner. That means, oh, I ain't got to go fix this shit. Oh, that come
Right.
on in. I don't give
Yeah.
a fuck
Yeah.
how.
Yeah. And then that's
Yeah,
how they.
I don't care what kind of attitude he got. He can deliver. And that was the thing. As long as I could deliver,
Hmm.
I can, say and do kind of what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And that's how my relationships around town developed. Also, and I'll say this to anybody who's a young writer. I told my wife just how she got um, where she is because I would do general meetings. People hated general meetings. Generals is where you just go and sit, schmooze, introduce yourself to an executive
Right.
or a producer, and they're usually just lunches. And like they pay for them, so I would do lunches. I would always have generals. I would do 20 generals a year, just talking to people, meeting people,
Yeah.
engaging with people, letting them know where I come from, tell my story about the barbershop. That always intrigued them. Having Morris Chestnut as a roommate growing up, in
Yeah.
college, or coming from South Central and some of that, the shit I used to get into, my game banging days and all that kind of stuff. So they were intrigued by all of that. So now they're getting to know me on a more personal level. And so when these executives, sometimes they were junior executives too, they climb up the ladder as well. So now when they become in a position to buy or to
Mm.
run a network, I have the relationships. To this day, there's
Right.
not a president of any network that I can't pick up the phone and call because I have that relationship with them.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, it's basically about leveraging that your friendships, relationships. But before all of that, you have to come in prepared and ready to
Yeah.
go, and know how to write, and know just basically know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and
I'll
then
say
from
this too.
and then from
You
there,
want people to,
you can climb up the ladder that way.
yeah. And a lot of times too, if you, do a good enough job, the showrunner will tell executives, oh, look out for this guy or this guy. So your name is
Hmm.
constantly being ranged out even through the showrunners. So, I remember I did Out All Night. I started off a trainee. I was a staff writer by December, and you weren't even supposed to get a script. I ended up writing 4 scripts for that show.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember they got canceled on a Thursday. I had a meeting at NBC on a Monday. I had no agent, no nothing. I didn't even know how I was supposed to go. That's how I knew I was. Next thing you know, I'm at the Four Seasons meeting with Will Smith and Biddy Medina, and then I'm at Fresh Prince of Bel Air within a week because
Wow.
Andy and Sue Boris had went over to NBC. See, I know you canceling this show, but you need to keep this dude in your fold because he's really really good. He's sharp. He's smart. He's
Yeah.
great. And you'd be foolish to let him go. And so um, that's because of the work I did on the show.
Hmm.
And so you got to be prepared. You got to be ready and take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Now, your wife Renata, I had her on the show
Yeah.
recently. She's
Yeah.
the writer, producer, showrunner for the animated series Good Times.
Yep.
Um, And early on in our conversation, we discussed everything from creating the show, her role, and what it means for a Black woman to be in the adult animation space, and the
Mm-hmm.
initial reception of the show. What are your thoughts on pushing boundaries and diving into this space?
I think let's talk about where we are. I think times have changed. We're in an emotional state right now, right? The
Mhm.
stuff that we like to me is all. I'm gonna be honest, it's all bullshit in my opinion. And I'm not saying that because of the backlash. I'm saying that we didn't do anything that anybody else didn't do.
Right,
Right. And then when people start talking about stereotypical and menstrual, and I would even, she was like, nah, I ain't tripping. She was
right,
staying 10 toes down, but they was coming after my wife. So I'm jumping in the comments. Like,
right.
and I was on the comments for 2 weeks straight. She'll tell you, I ain't sleep. I ain't give a shit. I'm talking
I,
to
I
everybody.
know. I saw some. I saw
And,
some, but
you know
I
what I'm
didn't.
saying?
Yeah, and I don't. So a part of our platform is what I like to do is try to shed as much positive light that I can to
Um,
everybody who's on the show, and
right.
it's all about giving it a chance. And I saw that a lot of the backlash was coming before the show was even out.
Yeah, it's all
But
emotional. Listen,
yeah,
when they
I've
announced it,
gotten I've gotten good reactions, and I've
yeah,
gotten some negative, but I think it's still,
and that's fair. Here's the
yeah.
thing about it: everybody's not gonna like everything. I have no problem with that. I've done sketch.
Mhm.
Everybody's not gonna. I've done controversial stuff, right?
Right.
And everybody's not gonna like everything. But it was really interesting how people like were just so vitriolic before the trailer. This is
Yeah.
before the trailer,
Mhm.
and what people don't understand like what it takes to um, get a show on the air, B, what it takes to develop a show, understanding what that development is. We had to do good times. We couldn't do good times from the 70s. It made no sense.
Right.
We're doing animation. In order to do animation, what people don't understand, that's 2 years. That's a 2 year process in most cases. We did in a year and a half with this one, but it's a year and a half to 2 year process. And if you're going to do animation, it has to be a reason to do it.
Mhm.
And people are like, well, you just could have took some of the episodes and animated. Y'all wouldn't have liked that either. It would have been boring. And
Right.
so, and it was adult animation. And
Mhm.
so we're up against shows like Big Mouth. We're up against shows like Hoops. We're up against shows like, I forgot Disenchanted and all these other shows that were really, really elevated and hardcore. That's
Yeah.
adult animation. That's where I come from. I did a show called Legends of Chamberlain Heights on
Yes.
Comedy Central, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Edgy for its time.
Right.
Matter of fact, I can tell you like this: Good Times actually, when they viewed it early on, did really well. When Legends was when they did their focus group, everybody hated it. They hated that show.
Really?
It was
Wow.
racist. Like and Comedy Central brought me in, and my thing was, long as I added social commentary to it because
Right.
I do that. That's what I do. And so my my statement was, you need to add. You got the fried chicken, right? Now you got to put broccoli on the plate, so at least the meal looks balanced,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And even with Good Times, we didn't like the trailer bugged me out because people say, "Oh, we're playing in stereotypes," and I'm like what about the trailer that was like stereotypical? Now, if you didn't like the animation or the look of the animation, that's a completely different conversation. That's fair game.
Mhm.
But when you start talking about minstrel, or this is the worst show ever, and I was telling people, I was like, how? Somebody said, "Oh, we setting the culture back 200 years." I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm real, I'm gonna be real.
Yeah. Be real.
I was like, when I said, do you know 3 niggas died over the Popeyes chicken sandwich?
Mm.
And Popeyes and nobody said anything. I said, them lines didn't get shorter. They died over. Somebody got stabbed over a Popeye chicken sandwich, 2 pieces of bread and some chicken breast. That
Mm.
didn't set us back. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And so it was selective outrage to me,
Yeah.
and it didn't make any sense. Again, if you watch the program and you didn't like it, that's a completely different conversation. You can't force people to like what you do. If you
Right.
don't find it funny, that's fair game.
Mhm.
But the way they attacked us, and was calling it was boycotting us, and I'm
Yeah.
going, you know, So that was a little bizarre to me. And I would even tell people like, "What's minstrel about it?" And they would never answer it.
No.
Um,
Nobody ever gave any pushback.
yeah, it was just, and then excuse me, let me get on my rant real quick. I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to take over your show or nothing like
Oh,
that,
go
but
ahead, please.
this needs to be said. I come up in the era, and people don't do their homework. They have very selective memory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go through a quick brief history because I wasn't born in Sedgwick. I can't talk about San Francisco Good Times. I understand good. Matter of fact, half the people who watch Good Times, which we didn't know, we all thought everybody loved Good Times.
Yeah,
That's not true. There was a large segment of people who never liked Good Times,
really.
right? And there was a large segment of people who thought Good Times was a classic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that really till this particular incident when we dropped the cartoon. But I remember Cosby when Cosby came out, right? The
Mm-hmm.
biggest critics of Cosby was black people.
Yeah.
That's not real. It's not authentic. Two-parent household. One's a doctor. One's a lawyer. That's not a real representation
I do
of
remember that. Yeah.
right. They
Mm-hmm.
hated it. Then it
Mm-hmm.
hit the numbers. Then it became a classic. When A Different World came out, oh, HBCUs ain't no real black college. People didn't even know about HBCUs. That's not no real black colleges that hit, and they found out there are HBCUs. That became a classic. People
Right.
don't remember when Martin came out because at that time you had you had the Cosby Show, you had A Different World, so there was a certain sort of vibe about black sitcoms were classy and traditional. So then
Mm-hmm.
when Martin came out, it was loud, it was real hood, it represented the hip hop culture. They didn't like Martin. Martin is too niggery. Is this? You heard all that stuff? That became a classic. When I was on the Wayans, they thought they hated the Wayans. That
Really.
became a classic. People
Wow.
talking about Boondocks. Go back and watch Boondocks first season. They
Yeah.
used to call that the nigger show because they said nigger 500 times in every episode. Oh, this ain't classy. It's smart. It's coonery. It's all of these things. Boondocks became a classic. I can
Right.
go on and on and on. The history of how we react to things and don't give things an opportunity because it's new and it's different for you
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, you know, at least absorb it, see what it is first, and understand it. When we did Good Times, it was adult animation, right? And so we were like, okay, we're going to tell a story about this family from the beginning to where they end up in episode 10. Yes, there were roaches in it. Yes, we did all of that. But it also served the story when Beverly wants to change the neighborhood and make it better
Right.
and fix the neighborhood. So you can't start in a place where everything is great. And
Right.
then what's her motivation to change?
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, we couldn't tell Good Times from the 70s. We had to talk about Good Times, what's going on in today. My
Right.
wife is from the south side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I hung out on the west side of Chicago because I was doing working with my boy Kareem Wells, who has a Stop the Violence campaign because they out there killing each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was these little kids called Yummies. That's what they call them. If you don't know who Yummy is, go look him up. Yummy, back in the early 90s, was this 11 or 2000, was an 11-year-old kid who had double homicide. And there was a police search for him. The gangs were looking for him and the cops were looking for him. He was a murderer and they kill him. The gangs end up killing him. They found his body. And
Wow.
so what you have now is these 11-year-old kids who are trying to emulate him because he represents the real tough gangster kind of guy.
Right.
And so I'm looking at all of this stuff in Chicago. We looked at the Cabrini when we first started thinking about doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get into it either because Renata kind of went through that. Um, we first time I went to Chicago, I went by the Cabrini Greens, right?
Right.
When I went back probably like 7, 8 years ago, you can't recognize that area. It got Apple stores and they gentrified that
Gentrified.
whole thing. White people walking with Great Danes. Like it's a completely different thing.
Right.
And so when she put this together, those are the things that she wanted to talk about in
Right.
the show. And, what was interesting to me was, um, again, three niggas died over
Chicken
chicken
sandwich.
sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said anything.
Mm-hmm.
You got um, all these shows about drug dealing. Snowfall, based on my block. I grew up with Freeway Rip,
Right.
right? They shoot on Halldale, 59th and Halldale right now. I grew up on 91st, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drug dealers. You got BMF, the show and the documentary. You got Ghost, Power.
Mm-hmm.
Raising a Cane. You got all of these different shows about drug dealing and about how this drug devastated a whole community. We don't get tired of that stuff. That's
Right.
fine, right? You also have Real Housewives. There's another thing. You have Real Housewives of everything, right? The black women are cussing each other out and flipping tables and doing all kinds of skullduggery stuff. You got Love and Hip Hop. These are all reality shows. These are people
Man, I
who are
know.
representing us in a realistic, supposedly realistic setting.
Yeah.
Love and Hip Hop. Don't get me started on Zeus. You got all of these different shows. Nobody says anything.
No.
NAACP, nobody. Nobody talking about boycotting nobody.
No.
Tyler Perry. I love Tyler Perry, and I'm not pointing this out to malign him or put him down, but does he tell the best stories? No. Does he talk about dark-skinned men in a negative way? Yes. Does he talk about our community a lot of times in a negative way? There's always a story that comes out of it, but a story of hope. But he plays in stereotypes.
Yeah.
Boondocks. People love to bring up Boondocks. Boondocks is nothing but stereotypes. When you deal with satirical storytelling, it's always riddled with stereotypes.
It's meant to be that way.
It's meant to be that way. Now, there's a difference between highlighting a stereotype and perpetuating a stereotype.
Right.
We highlighted the stereotypes.
Right.
And more importantly, the cartoon is meant to be absurd,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a
loud,
cartoon.
outrageous.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at an absurd cartoon and you're trying to find truth in some sort of traditional nuance in an absurd cartoon, then you're the one that's absurd, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I want to just speak on Dalvin real quick, and I'll stop talking. Dalvin, she brought this up, and I want to reiterate it. First of all, Dalvin never sold drugs to black people in the community. One of the things when we developed this, we was like, they brought crack in our neighborhood, right?
Right. Right.
We're gonna bring Oxycontin to theirs. That's really what that was about. And it was about those kids we were talking about in Chicago. Renata has a relative that works in the judicial system.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about 10, 11-year-old kids who don't even have hope beyond being kids. They said, I want to touch something. I mean, she told us a story about this one kid who was in there for murder. He said, I just want to touch a Gucci belt before I die. So you have these kids living this life of criminality because it's cool and because there's nothing there. There's no resources. There's no opportunity for jobs. They're shutting down schools left and right. And so what else are these kids going to do? Yes, we have a baby, and we made him a baby because if it would have been a teenager, it wouldn't have been. There's nothing funny about that. There's nothing. But if we're gonna go absurd, we made it a baby.
Right.
And the thing is, people are like, I can't believe that y'all had a baby selling drugs. And I go, well, how many goddamn babies did you see walking around 17-month-old selling drugs? Like, come on.
Right.
Like,
And
it's
then not only that, the Dave Chappelle joke, the baby on the corner,
you laughed at that. Now, that was funny when he did it, but when we do it, suddenly we're setting the culture back. And it just felt like selective outrage. It felt like people got mad, and then everybody jumped on that, and got mad with them. And now what's happening is, and I told Renata this, it was going to happen. We have more and more people going, we were tripping. This is really funny.
Yeah. Once they give it a chance, that I've seen a lot of those responses. Is I read a lot of the comments. I heard what everybody said. I decided to give it a chance. Some people said it's still a no for me, but then there was a lot of people who were like, you know what? Outside of the name.
Yes.
I thought this was really good.
And this is an important point that I want to point out that I always, if I ever get a chance to say this, I think I need to say it. When you attack the way they attacked us, the powers that be are watching what you're doing.
Right.
Right. We want to sit up here and we want to say we want traditional programming. Abbott Elementary is a hit show, Emmy-nominated show. You know how many black people watching that show? 29% of their audience is African American.
Wow. Yeah.
When Blackish was out, 70% of their audience was white.
Really?
The Neighborhood, who does 6.2 million per episode, only 1.2 million of that audience is African American people of color. I can go on and on. We don't support the shows we claim we want to watch. Wonder Years wasn't dominated by a black audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can go on, and that's just fact and data. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you sit up there and you're killing this one particular in this show, I had executives go to me like, I thought you guys did a great job because they understand satire. They understand what we did, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, when you go and you react this way, right? But the data shows that you love this ignorant shit over here.
Mm-hmm.
What they're looking at is that there's no pleasing this audience.
Yeah.
And so what you're going to end up happening is going to be less and less of them inclined to buy anything from us
Right.
unless it's ignorant because the data shows that's what you respond to.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger thing is this. More and more, the Latino community is becoming the bigger, a greater population, more so than the African American
Yeah.
population,
Yeah.
which means they're going to become the bigger consumers,
Yeah. I've
which
had this
means they're going to
conversation.
start to placate to the Latinos.
Yeah.
What you're going to start seeing is more Latino programs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? Latino people ain't complaining like black folks. They ain't got to deal with this headache because
Right.
they're looking at us going, this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
We do this, you guys don't watch it. We rip the ignorant shit, you guys watch it. But you put this cartoon out, you want to cancel it. We
Mm-hmm.
don't understand how to please you guys,
Right.
right? We're big on complaining and tearing each other down in such a way that it turns off people who will want to do business with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what you end up doing, you're hurting the next group of writers and creators who want to come up behind us because we don't know what's going to sell.
Right.
Right? Because we complain and tear down everything
Mm-hmm.
without giving it a chance. You know what I mean? And so we're our own biggest sort of I would say enemy in all of this. And so take me out of it. I'm not going to sound arrogant or anything. I'm going to work. I have 3 other pilots. I'm working. You know, I'm
Right.
co-EPing, and that's the thing. The Upshaws, love the Upshaws. Right? #1 show on Netflix.
Yeah.
Smokes big. You know, Mike Epps' character smokes weed.
Yeah.
Got a baby mama. They're poor in Indiana. Nobody said anything. Nobody said, let's boycott the Upshaws. You laugh at the Upshaws.
Right.
But a cartoon is where you draw the line. And I just thought honestly, we looked insane. We looked crazy. Because I get it. If you something you don't like, that's one thing. But to go to the levels that they went and just trying to destroy people's credit. They went after my wife. They went after my kids.
Wow.
And it was so crazy. And and if you saw my comments, I never disrespected one person.
Right. No, not at
I,
all.
I try to educate them.
Right.
Like Devon 10, 15 years ago, would have been a different
Different person.
reaction. You know what I'm saying? But it was about getting people to understand satire. You don't even know what satire is. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
tried to tell me Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was satire. I said, that's a sitcom. You don't even know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know what minstrel is. And not only that, we went, I said to somebody, I said, you think we woke up in the morning and said, let's destroy the black community?
No, not at all.
And let me dispel one last thing, and I'll be quiet, I promise. Everybody like, oh, y'all sold out, y'all getting the bag. Do you understand the lowest paying profession in entertainment is animation?
Is it
It's no
really?
money. Yes. You don't
Wow.
get no money. You have your show has to be a really big hit for you to really start to see the benefits and the wealth of animation. There's no money in
Yeah.
animation.
And they have animation on all day long.
There's no money in it.
Really?
No. There's no
Wow.
money in it for a writer, producer, or creator. There's no money in it. Because it has to hit a certain number and do certain things. And once it does that, then you can reap the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nah. And no white people wrote this. It's all black folks. It was all our perspective. Everything
Right.
we thought was funny. Nobody expected the reaction. But I'm gonna be quiet now because I think I ran my mouth too much.
No, no,
I said what
and
I needed to say.
no, you're
So
good, and I'm glad that you were able to clear the air and speak your piece on it, and I wanted to be able to give you the floor to say what you wanted to
appreciate it.
say. Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely,
And
and
I'll say again, if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. But
right,
where we went is we're not looking good as a community because we don't look like we even know what we want or who we are or what our identity is at all.
mm,
I'm telling you, I talked to executives for the last week or so in
mm,
different, not just Netflix, at Hulu, Amazon. I was talking to somebody at CBS. They're all going, we
really,
don't know if we want to be in the black people business because
really,
nobody wants that vitriol coming their way because it's bad for business.
mm,
And so yeah, they're gonna start looking at the Latinos and the Indian, Pan Asian people and be like, they're not gonna, we don't ain't got to deal with this kind of shit. Let's just
Yeah.
rock with them, and then you're gonna be crying that there's no black program.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, 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 no. I'm glad that you spoke on it for sure. Now there is one other thing that I do want to mention Renata about, because early on in our conversation there was another thing that she had mentioned.
Hmm.
When she was trying to find her way early on, she spoke of the fact that she came to you with ideas to write her shows, but you ultimately
Yeah,
told her no.
yeah.
But you told her no for good reason. Can you tell us why it was important to say no at the time? I guess from a writer's perspective.
Because I think when you meet people who want to write, everybody, there's a lot of people who want to write,
Hmm.
but they're afraid to do it. A lot because you see why, right? You're judged harshly for it, right? And to be a writer, you got to be able to take a lot of criticism. You have to be able to put yourself out there as a vulnerable profession because you're putting your thoughts and feelings down on paper, and somebody might go, not good enough.
Yeah.
And so what I said to her was, she has some really good ideas, and I said, you're a scared writer. I'm not going to do that for you. If you
Hmm.
want to write, sit down, get a pen and a pad, and fucking write.
Hmm.
And what I did was I sent her to a thing called Writers Boot Camp.
Right.
And that's another thing that they don't know. Like Writers Boot Camp is a sort of like a seminar or a class that you can take where you can go in there with an idea, just a seed of an idea, and they will work that idea from a log line to a first draft, whether it's a movie or a sitcom.
Hmm.
And everybody in there are like white writers from different shows. I was in there with people from Friends, Frasier, and what it does is just sharpens your tool to
Right.
write every year because things change, tones change, how people see the world changes. So you just want to be on top of your game. I've
Hmm.
gone every year for the last 25 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I actually taught a class. I actually did lectures there. I sent everybody there
Hmm.
because not enough of us were going. When I went, I was the only black person in the classes, and I'm
Wow.
sitting there with all different types of people,
Right.
and none of them were black. It was all white people getting that information and sharpening their tool. And I sent her, and she came out with a strong first draft of a show. She sold it. Nada's never really gone up the ranks of a regular writer. She's only sold shows and ran shows, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
But that's because she's married to me, and I can give her the inside game. But it's also learning to be confident in the material that you're putting forth. And so that's how that went down. And I was like, this is what you have to do. I always
Hmm.
tell people the scariest thing that you will ever write as a writer is fade in.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most the best feeling you will ever have as a writer is when you write fade out.
It's like finally it's done.
It's done. Starting is the hardest thing.
Yes, it is.
It's the
It really is.
hardest thing. And so I recognized she was afraid to just sit down and do it. And I wasn't going to let her be afraid of something as simple as writing your thoughts down on paper,
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that's how that came to be. And she took it and
Took
she
off.
doing her own thing. She don't
Yeah.
even, she don't need me for nothing. She hired me for good times. I was a co-EP on
Right,
good
right.
times. So I
Now
worked for her.
the roles reversed.
Yeah, I worked for her on good times. So
Yeah.
that's how that came to be.
Okay. Now, as someone who has written on many shows, when you write for one, two, or three episodes, how does that come about? Where you are solely contracted for a single or multiple episodes, but not for a complete season. That's one thing I'm
Um,
trying to understand as to when you write for one show or one episode, but not for many. You know.
it really depends on the show. Like, depending on your level, once you're a staff writer, you'd be lucky to get a script.
Okay.
You're kind of there to learn.
Hmm.
Story editors, you're guaranteed at least one episode, right? But you're there for the whole season.
Hmm.
Um, when you get to my level, it just comes down to the showrunner's choice. Hey, I know Devon can deliver this. I need to get this episode out. You might be behind in production.
Hmm.
Hey, we need to turn around the script really fast. And you go to your best writers that you know, if I give him this story, I know he's going to turn around and give me a strong first draft to work off of,
Right.
and that's going to help me catch up. Um, Also, too, ideas. When you're in these rooms, you have to come in and you have to come up with ideas and pitch
Mm-hmm.
ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And best idea always wins. And if you come in a room and you pitch an idea, okay, go write it. So if you come in with multiple ideas that they like, go write it.
Okay.
You know, that's how it usually goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But as you go up the ladder at certain levels, from story editor to executive story editor to co-producer, producer, supervisor, producer, so forth and so on. When you do your contract, sometimes in your contract it says, "Oh, this person gets 2 episodes."
Okay.
You don't ever get more than two, but you get 1 or 2 episodes in your contract, and so that's how it goes down. And then if the showrunner sees fit to give you a third or a fourth, that's to the discretion of the showrunner.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain what the role of a consulting producer is? When I was looking at your IMDb, I saw that on several of your projects, you're a consulting producer.
Um, Consulting, I can tell you what it used to mean, what it means now. What it used to mean is you would come in 2 or 3 days a week, as opposed to sit there the whole week.
Mhm.
Usually, when the script is done, and your job is to come in and look for holes in story,
Okay.
because you're the fresh eyes, right? So it's either jokes, story, and that you're coming in and you're helping to put the final nail in the coffin on the script.
Mhm.
And so you would come 2, 3 days a week. Now, it's just a title that they use to not pay you a certain amount of money.
Oh
But
man.
also, too, it frees you up. Like, I have a lot of development.
Hmm.
So as a consulting producer, because my fee is not that comparable to those who are on staff that have, like, we call them main credits.
Hmm.
um, it allows me to then go still develop. So a lot of times when you are on a show, you're not allowed to develop outside of your
Got it.
employment. So
Okay.
if I'm on, you know, um, let's say Abbott Elementary,
Hmm.
they want me to be focused on Abbott Elementary. I can't go pitch to NBC. I can't go pitch to ABC. I can't develop my own stuff normally. So they have a contract on me. My job is to be focused on the job that I'm on. As a
Hmm.
consultant producer, I can go pitch. I can go do whatever I want to do.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So a
Okay.
lot of times I would take consultant producers because I had things in development and I couldn't be on staff in that way.
Yeah. That
And
allows
so
for you
that's
to
why
do.
yeah, so that's why you see consulting sometimes, because I still can go in every day. But if
Mhm.
I need to leave at 2 o'clock to go do a pitch meeting, I can leave at 2 o'clock, go do a pitch meeting. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? If I sell it and it goes, then I can leave because that's built into my contract as a
Mhm.
consultant producer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now you're an EP for an upcoming World Star Hip Hop project. Are you able to give us any details? Do you
Nah,
know
that's
about that?
old. That's a
Oh, that's
long time.
old.
Yeah, that was fortunately Q died. We were doing a show sort of based around World Star Hip Hop and how we started it and created this empire. And unfortunately, he passed away before we got a chance to do it.
Oh,
So
okay. I
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll scratch that from the interview.
Ah,
All right. Uh, Another show that you're a part of, it's an upcoming scripted drama for BET Plus about LAPD mental evaluation.
yes,
Can you give us any insight on that?
yeah. It was originally created by a young lady named Lena Patel. Um, they brought me in. I was supposed to produce, but they brought me in to kind of co-write it because she was still young. But she had a really, really great idea about the MEU unit, mental evaluation health unit, and what they are now because of what's going on with mental health in our communities.
Hmm.
And now we're more educated about mental health and how cops respond to mental health. Normally, if they see you wilding out, they just think you either on drugs or you
Right.
threatening.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, unfortunately, either getting abused or being killed, literally
Yes.
on the spot. And so once they begin to understand mental health, they created this evaluation unit. And now when on 5150 calls, there's a cop and a clinician or a therapist that goes out with the cop now. And
Really?
so their job is to de-escalate and assess and try to give that person help. And then instead of sending them to jail, they send them to the hospital where they get more help. And so uh, we thought that was an interesting sort of
Yes.
fertile ground for procedural. And so it's BET's first procedural. They loved our first draft of the script. You know, we got our notes. Actually, I'm turning in the draft next week, our second
Mm,
draft. And it's just about, you know, these two cops from two different backgrounds coming together, working in this newly developed unit
mm,
with mental health. I did a ride along. We did all of that kind of stuff
really?
to
Yeah.
really immerse ourselves in that world.
Mm,
And it's a very interesting project. I'm very proud of it
yeah.
because it speaks to what's going on right now with, like I said, with mental health from all different areas, aspects, and culture. It doesn't matter who you are; it's a human condition.
Right.
It doesn't matter what race, color, creed you are, or gender, or pronoun. It is
Right.
everybody suffers from some sort of mental health or some sort of emotional distress, and we're very proud of like tackling that issue with this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
it's always great to shed more light on important topics, especially emerging important emerging important topics uh,
yeah,
that they're not just talking points. These are things that are really going on in people's lives today,
yeah,
and we do need more information on it, and more
hmm
light needs to be shown on it, and things do need to be handled in a different way, opposed to just, you thinking somebody's crazy on the street, or
yeah,
on drugs, like you said,
hmm
and the situation escalates, and next thing you know, you have a death on your hands.
yeah. Unnecessary death. Yeah, so
Yes.
yeah, we're very proud of it, man. You know,
Yeah.
they're excited about it too. So hopefully it's coming soon to
Okay.
your TV screens.
Now
But
that's a different take from a lot of your comedic writing. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer to write comedy, or do you prefer more drama style?
as I gotten older, I'm really loving drama
Okay.
because I get to tell real stories in a more detailed, nuanced way.
Mm,
Um, I'm doing the upshot. Like I'm shying away from comedy just because where we are in society, man.
yeah.
We can't say. I say anything. I don't care. Like you see what good times, I don't give a shit. We wrote what we wanted to write. Like
Yeah.
if you don't like
Absolutely.
it, you don't like it. I don't give it. Like, but it's just a weird space that we in,
Mm,
and it's getting more difficult to kind of ascertain, what people are going to respond to, what they're not going to respond to. And I can't write comedy like that. I did Mad TV. We didn't think about shit. We just wrote.
right.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And we wrote what we thought was funny, like in Living Color and all those shows. We just wrote what we thought was funny,
Yeah.
um, and that's where I come from. So
Mm,
I don't want to say I don't like comedy anymore. I just my style and my brand of comedy
it's
is
different.
probably not suited for where we are in society right now because everybody is everybody's hypocritical
Hmm.
and full of shit. If I'm gonna be honest with you, because like I said, why does one show get a pass and another show don't?
Right.
Why is this show considered stereotypical and another show is not considered stereotypical, but they have the same elements of stereotypes in
Hmm.
those shows? Um, And so it gets harder and harder to understand. And I'm gonna tell you, the networks are finding more and more difficult to figure it out too. So when you go pitch comedy, it's got to be a little more sanitized,
Hmm.
um, and because they're trying not to offend anybody. So it's easier to write a drama and then put some humor in the drama than it is to just do straight comedy right now. For me, I only can speak for me. So I'm leaning more towards drama. Like 3 shows I have, 2 of them are dramas, one's a comedy, and that's a single camera drama. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards.
Okay. Now, do you feel that there is a need for more representation and writers of color within the industry? Um, I from your perspective, being on the inside and being able to see, the all the different writers that are on all of these different shows. Do you feel like there needs to be more representation there, or are there a lot more writers of color that we just don't know about?
There's it's whew, that's kind of a difficult question to answer. I'm gonna say always we need more representation. We just need people with different perspectives.
Yeah.
Everybody, everybody, that's the thing about, not to keep bringing up good times. That's the thing about that. People, we have this one idea of what blackness is, and then we don't have an idea of blackness. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
one minute, you know, I remember they said Blackish was corny,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go, but it's a traditional show. Anthony Anderson, Tracy Ellis Ross. Well, she was a doctor. He had a great job as an advertising guy. The kids were smart and intelligent, but that show's corny. But then if you do this show over here like this, and that show is minstrel,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, you need a different perspective. We're not a monolith,
Right.
right? Everybody's experience is different. You know, I grew up in South Central. My experience in South Central, yeah, there's certain elements that are very similar, but there's also elements that are very different.
Right.
And so people raised and born with different perspectives and experiences. And I think the only way that we can branch out is by people coming in with these different ideas. The problem is, anytime you do something different, you run the risk of people murdering you for it.
Yeah. Wow.
And so what it does is, I think it prevents a lot of people who would come out with something different to come out with something different for fear how it's going to be criticized. Might not
Yeah.
be black enough, might be corny, it ain't real, it ain't this, it ain't, it ain't hood enough. You got the hood niggas saying it ain't hood enough. You got traditional people saying it ain't woke enough. It's it's room for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
it's room for all of us to share our experiences. It's room for everybody to share our perspectives. We're snowflakes. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to grow this thing and expand it, you have to be open minded.
Yeah.
And the thing, like, look, I really ain't tripping on what people thought about this. My biggest disappointment in reading this was just how people just jumped out the window and didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah.
Not educated, not understanding anything, just repeating and parroting what they saw other people say online. Couldn't have civil discourse and conversation about certain things, and they don't realize how that's hurting us. Again,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to like our show. It's not about liking our show. Take good times out of the shit. It's
Mm-hmm.
about, if we don't expand and accept and appreciate different perspectives and ideas, we're going to become dinosaurs. Everybody's going to pass us up, and we're going to be still back here talking about how come we can't, how come they don't show,
Yeah.
right? And so we definitely need that, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't get that unless you're supportive of it. And supporting something doesn't mean you got to like something because black people are in it. You have every right to criticize, because sometimes the critiques is what make us better as writers,
Mm-hmm.
because there's things we may not even see or understand. Like, oh, you're right. Somebody, like, when they say, hey, you know, you probably should have called it a different name, right, instead of Good Time.
Mm-hmm.
We had that conversation with Sony. They had already sold it prior to us coming on board, and this is
Right.
what it was. We were the second team,
Right.
so we couldn't change it. Norman Lear is a part of it. He owned it, and that's the thing too. They have titles. They try to make money off the titles. We get it, and
Mm-hmm.
so I never argue with anybody. I say, hey, you're probably right. I don't disagree with that. But once you get past the name, like, use some critical thinking and go, okay, this is 2024. This is about this particular family member, or you're watching Abbott Elementary. Like, oh, this is a different style of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
We accept things our white counterparts get to do, but the minute we do, we're being criticized for it. And so we have to really get into, I think, a mindset of just being more accepting and loving, that black people are multi-layered,
Mm-hmm.
multi-perspective, um, human beings who are having multiple experiences, and they don't all have to be the same in order for us to be black.
Right.
And when you're allowed to do that, then I think you get better storytelling. You get a more breadth of, oh, this is interesting. We don't always have to be slaves, drug dealers, or I don't even like to say buffoons, because we got niggas we know like that. Like, let's act like come on, and we laugh at them. We
Yeah.
hang out with them. Some of these niggas your favorite cousin. Like stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's keep it a buck. Like, I got some niggas I know. And some uncles I know, they wild as shit and they my niggas. Like, I rock with them. And I don't put them down or go, oh, you know, it's come on. We have to just open our minds and just be more supportive and loving of the art.
Right.
And I think when you do that, those writers that we have can now be more expressive and feel that they have a space to be more expressive
Hmm.
without the condemnation. And that's the thing I'm hearing and this is before Good Times. I was hearing this because of the internet. Like, the internet's a cold-blooded place, man. One
Yeah.
minute we hate Amanda Seales, now we loving Amanda Seales. We don't know what the fuck we want to do.
Yeah.
And there's no shade against her. I'm just using
Right.
her as an example of just
Right.
how people respond,
Yeah.
right? And people just be on there talking and don't know shit and just all kind of misinformed. You have I give you I told one dude, I said, define minstrel. Oh, nigga, I ain't gotta do that. And I said, you have a phone in your hand.
Yeah, you're right. You have the
You could have
access.
just looked it up and told me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's just about, look, we're all in this together.
Hmm.
And nobody, I've been doing this 33 years. I'm gonna be a bug. I have never met not one person of color as a writer, producer, director, whatever, who went into this to make the Black community look bad.
Right. Yeah. Why would
Even
we?
Tyler Perry. You
Yeah.
say what you want about Tyler's goal is not to make Black people look bad. This is
Right.
just his perspective of the people he grew around. He grew up
Right.
around.
Hmm.
So it's, let's have a little more grace with that. I got into this one guy. He was giving, I ain't gonna say who. I'll say, like, puffiness. Like, yeah, you guys don't know what's happening. You got to give him grace, whatever. And this was the same dude that tore down our show. I said, wait a minute, you're gonna tear down a cartoon, but you want to give a dude who supposedly had done some things allegedly, you want to give him grace, but we don't get grace
Right.
again. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying they're equal in terms of what it is, but there's something that's very similar to how you give grace to one
Right.
particular situation and not grace to the other. We all deserve grace.
Yeah. If you're gonna stand on one thing, you gotta stand on
You got
all.
to stand on everything.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, we need more people of color. We need more women in comedy.
Yes. Yeah.
My wife is only Black female, and yes, she's Black, despite what everybody else think about. Her story's going to come out later.
Yeah.
It's crazy how her story went. When you hear a story, all y'all niggas going to be apologizing. But she's the only Black female animator in the game.
Right. That's what she told me. And
In the
we
game,
yeah, we need more in that space. Absolutely.
she brought in female animators.
Yeah.
When I did Legends of Chamber High Heights, I brought in female animators,
Mm.
Black female animators. I brought in Black uh, directors, female directors, and male directors. We
Wow.
don't get those opportunities nowhere else because they
Right.
don't think about us like that. Kenya
Yeah.
Barris does that. Kenya Barris has always been for the culture. Whether you like his stuff or not, Kenya's for the culture, bro.
Right.
That's all that nigga talks about. The
Yeah.
culture, the culture, the culture, the culture. So I'm sick of it sometimes. But he's for the culture. And
Yeah.
they murdered his brother.
Yeah. I remember when Black AF came out, and no, they didn't like it.
They murdered his brother.
They didn't like it, but I thought it was a genius show. I thought it was really good. I couldn't
Listen,
wait for the next season.
listen, the episode with him and Tyler Perry, I told him, I said, this is one of
Yeah.
my good friends.
Yes.
One of the best episodes of television in a long fucking time.
That dialogue between the two.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. And
Yeah.
y'all killing this brother because he's doing something different.
Mhm.
And then here's what we do. 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, everybody talking about, man, that was a classic. I'm online. They talking about South Central. I don't know if you remember that show, South Central with
Yes.
Lorenz Tate.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So somebody put up the thing on the internet, and everybody talking about how dope the show was and how it was ahead of its time and how racist Fox was to take it off the air. And they just, who took it off the air? Black folks took it off the air.
Because they complained about it.
They complained about it. Oh, this is because it was. I could tell you the exact episode where they complained. It's when the mother was in the store and didn't have enough money to pay for a grocery because she didn't have enough food stamps, and niggas went crazy. That's not a true ad. They're making us look like this, and now you talking about how great the show is.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Like,
Wow.
We got to stop that, man. We're hurting ourselves by just the knee-jerk reaction or the emotional response to something.
Hmm.
A group of people say they hate something, now you got to hate it. A group of people say, oh, we hate Black AF. Everybody hate AF. They talking about, so many people talking about they hate Good Times. All you got to do is, have you watched it? No. Then
Right.
how are you forming an opinion?
Yeah. There's a lot more of I've never watched it to than folks who than folks who actually have watched it.
Yeah, but you want to boycott me and take jobs away from people or something you hadn't even watched. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man. That's not even smart.
Right.
Again, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. You don't have to like it. If you watch it, it ain't for you. That's fair.
Right.
This is not about defending the show and going, you have to like it because it's black people. No,
No.
black people do whack shit too. I've done some whack shit.
Yeah. We, we all
I
we all
promise you.
we all go through it. Yeah. We're human. It's a part of being human, man.
Yeah, it's trial and error, but damn, we don't have the space. If we don't have the space to take risk and try things and be supportive of things, we're never going to elevate and we're never going to evolve.
Right.
And that was the most disappointing thing about everything. And we stood 10 toes. Even the NAACP saw our shit, was like, oh, they tripping.
Yeah.
That's why you ain't heard nothing from them.
Mm.
Because the messages that we have within the show, it's not just, we just threw up stereotypes to be stereotypes. It's not even hard stereotypes. We
No.
ain't got no Uncle Ruckus. We ain't got Gangstalicious. We ain't got, like, come on, man. Like, and I'm not even, I love Boondocks. One of my
Yeah,
favorite
me
shows.
too.
Rodney Barnes is one of my best friends. He
Yes, I love
co-created the show. I
Boondocks as
know
well.
Aaron Brewer. This ain't about hating on them. I love the Boondocks. I got my kids watching the Boondocks.
Right.
Love the Boondocks. Love Family Guy. Love Big Mouth. I
Yes.
love all these shows that are irreverent and loud and absurd. And we just wanted to play in that same area because we don't really get the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so representation is so important. I'm getting older, so my ideas and perspective at some point are going to become outdated. And
Right.
so who are the next generation of writers, female, males, different creeds, colors, cross sections of people? Who are the next group of people that are going to come up and tell those stories that affects the generation that they're from?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so, I'm all for that. That's why I'm going down to Watts to talk, teach these kids how to write
Yeah.
next month, because that's what it's about,
Yeah.
elevating the culture.
If you don't mind, is that class free, or is it something that you can share?
I don't charge anybody to do anything.
Okay. Do you mind giving the information as to where the class might be?
It's I can't give it out because it's for a specific group of
Okay.
kids
Got
at
it.
a
Okay.
school, so it's
Okay.
not open to the public. But I do. People hit me up all the time. This is what I do all day. She'll tell you I talk to anybody.
Mm.
I don't charge anybody for. I don't believe in that. I'm not ever charging my people for information.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I was found in a barbershop on 43rd and Crenshaw, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Rob Evers didn't have to do that for me.
That's
So
amazing.
the information is not for me to keep. The information is for me to share. And
Yes.
so I'm 10 toes down on I'm actually going to start teaching a class. I do a class at Columbia. And I do a class at the Writers Guild. We meet once a month where I mentor I mentor 10 writers there as well. I'm talking to the WGA about how to open it up to those who don't even know how to get in and don't have an idea how to get in.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
And not only that, what I teach at Columbia with the Black students coming out of there is not only how to get in, but how to stay in.
Right.
And how to be professional and how to be prepared and how to navigate these choppy waters of Hollywood, how to find an agent, all of those things that no one taught me. I was plucked out 43rd Crenshaw and I was thrown out there. It was none but God, bro. And so, that's as I get older, that's all that I really want to do as I get older in this business is maybe start moving away from the actual writing and be more in the teaching and mentorship of the next generation of writers coming up because I want us to win.
Absolutely.
We are very talented. We have voices. We are trendsetters.
We
a
are.
badass culture, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we forget that. We
Yeah.
are dope as hell. And sometimes we get so caught up in the minutia of the internet or trolling and all these other things that takes us away from our God-given talents of being the undeniable trendsetters of this world, not just the states, the world.
The world.
And so I want us to get back to that space.
Yeah.
And so that's my plan and my goal as I get older, God willing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Devon, what's next for you?
These 3 shows,
These 3 shows. Okay.
and then I'm still pitching. Like that's the thing. These shows that I'm writing, I have. We're trying to. I'm working with Richard Pryor's estate. I have another animated show based on Richard Pryor's character Mudbone.
Okay.
Um, give you some backstory on that. We pitched it to a particular streaming site. I'm not gonna say who. It's not Netflix, so I'm not gonna say who else. But and we did sort of like, I wanted to be careful with the legacy of Richard Pryor,
Right.
and um, and we pitched something that was pretty traditional, and I wouldn't call it safe, but it was middle of the road. And the first thing they said was, "We love everything about your concept. It's not edgy enough. Can you make it edgy for us?
It needs to be more edgy.
It needs to be more edgy because it's animation."
Yeah.
I'm just saying what it is. But that's one of the things. I got a couple of movies that I'm doing that I can't speak about right now because they're still in the developmental stage.
Sure.
Some
Sure.
point in talking about it, them shits never go. They're like, "Hey, whatever happened to?" I'm like,
Yeah.
but just doing a bunch of stuff, man. I'm always writing. I got about 8 or 9 projects that I'm doing right now. I just did
Wow.
a script with Chris Erskine, who's a director.
Mhm.
We got a script out there right now called Jackson and the Giants. It's a reimagination of Jack and the Beanstalk set in Annabella South.
Okay.
And it's crazy, because we wanted to play in the fantasy world.
Right. Yeah.
Not a lot of black people play in the fantasy world. So, and that's been challenging because nobody wants to spend that kind of bread, that it would take. They got the Game of Thrones and everything else. It's like, why can't
Right.
we play in that space as well? So,
They don't
you
want to
know,
give
we're,
the larger budgets.
yeah, we hustling. I mean, it's coming off the strike, a lot of things happening, but still, it's you gotta want to invest
Hmm.
in African American perspective in that particular genre. And
Right.
again, talking to them, and they watching what's happening with Good Times. They're like, well, I mean, would black people even watch this? And it's just it hit us in a different way. It affected that, and it was like, damn.
Right.
And that's the thing we don't understand. These outbursts and just tearing each other down. They're watching,
Right.
And secondly, I'll end with this. I'm not ending, but I'll say this. I'm
Sure.
the type of person, the way I grew up, I really don't give a shit what white people think about us.
Hmm.
I don't walk around when I write, when I do anything, I'm me. I'm unapologetically black.
Right.
Yeah, I like fried chicken and watermelon sometimes. I don't eat them together, but
Right.
I don't do that shit. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I,
Yeah.
I, I, I dress how I'm dressing. I live how I live. And I'm not ashamed of that.
Hmm.
And that's the freedom that I have as a writer. And that's what I'm trying to get these other writers
To
and
see.
people to sort of get to. Because if you're so concerned and worried about what they think about us, it affects how you think about yourself. It affects how you think about your writing craft. It affects how you think about the stories you want to tell. Because
Mhm.
you're trying to appease a group of people who are no better than you.
Right.
Somebody said in the Good Times, "Oh, you giving racists ammunition?" I said, "Ma'am, they're already racist.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't need ammunition."
No. They're gonna say what they're gonna say. They're gonna think what they're gonna think, regardless.
I don't care.
Right.
Long as it's not hurting the community, hurting us at large. And again, you can't look at anything and go, "That's all black people."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I watch Snowfall, love Snowfall.
Yeah.
But not once did I walk away and say, "Yeah, that's how they see me as this drug dealer." I see none of my shit in there. I
Right.
just watched it as entertainment.
Hmm. Took it for
And
what it was, in the realm of what it is. That's it.
it is what it is, bro.
Yeah.
And so that's if anything out of this conversation, I hope people and writers who want to get into this profession, because it's not easy, man, and you have to fight for your perspective.
Hmm.
When you're weak minded, they'll tell you how to be black.
Hmm.
If you're weak,
Yeah.
I ain't weak.
Right.
Everything I did is or everything I wrote because that's the way I wanted to write it. Like it, love it, or not like it, that's fair. But nigga, I did it because that's what I wanted to do. If you don't like it, come see me, come talk about it. I ain't afraid to talk to anybody about what I wanted to do.
Right. I'm right here.
I'm right. I don't go nowhere. I wrote on my thing. I want all the smoke. You can come to
Yeah,
my page. Don't come at my wife. Come at me
right.
because I help shape that. Give a
Mm,
shit. Like I'm free. I'm a free man, and I can write and do whatever I want to do. Just like you have every right to
mhm,
criticize and not like something. I have every right to do
right.
what I want to do and what I want to write and how I want to tell a story. Doesn't mean that it's perfect, but I have every right, and that's how I'm going to live till the day till I leave this earth, and that's what I teach my kids.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. You
so
got to stand on it, man. You got to stand on it.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to stand up for yours and believe in yours. So
Right.
uh, and they need to come check your thing. I've been going through your some of your interviews, and I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you,
And
man. Thank you
and
so much.
people, I hope this just blow up, and people can come and get an opportunity to hear different perspectives and stories from all different professions in the
Right.
entertainment industry about what it's like and what it takes to succeed in this business because it's not easy. It's really hard.
Very hard.
It's
Yeah.
really hard. I grew up in the '90s where they would tell you we don't want a black writer unless we
Yeah.
have a black character. I grew up in them areas. I when I was on Weeds, I was the only black writer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I could probably imagine that, from a show like Weeds, but Weeds was a hugely popular show at the same
And
time.
the black family was based on my family. Their last name is Shepard.
I would have never put two and two
That's
together.
the story I told Gingy when we were on Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I was selling weed at Fresh Prince.
Wow, man, that is crazy.
That's me. That's my family. That's my aunt. Conrad was me. Um, the other girl's my cousin Lori. That's like
That's your background. That's your life.
their last name is Shepard.
Wow.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I did the story before you know, when they used to think Fresh Prince was corny. I'm the one that wrote the before the famous and more classic episode of Will's father not coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I did the episode where Carlton joins a fraternity and they didn't want him because he wasn't black enough.
Yes, man. Yeah, and that narrative still plays out in today's version of Bel Air,
Yeah,
where Carlton is still trying to find his social acceptance.
yeah. And if you watch that show, they have a book about it called the Fresh Prince Project where I have a whole chapter dedicated to me in that particular storyline. It was the first time that character, Will would always protect him. Ever since that episode, Carlton had an opportunity to voice who his identity, stand on 10 toes down on who he was,
Mhm.
and was able to speak up for himself. And so moving forward, Carlton became his own individual person. He was no longer Will's sidekick after that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story. That's a beautiful story about that. I'll tell another time how I even got there at 22. But
Man,
that's what I'm saying. Like I've been fighting for the culture, man, since I've been in the game.
that
Real
is
talk.
amazing.
So I don't listen to the naysayers because they don't know me.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
feel me? So it's all
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely. Well, Devon, I'm sorry, I called
Yeah,
you
that's
Devon.
all. Yeah.
Um, Lastly, I like to give all of my guests the final word, whether that's a piece of advice, words of encouragement, or a quote that you like to live by. You can say all three, or you can choose one of the three. It's up to you.
I'll give some advice, and I'm going to reiterate something I said earlier. Um, let's be kinder. Let's be more open minded to the arts. Let's be more open minded to other perspectives and opinions, because that's the other way we're gonna grow.
Mhm.
And understand that nobody's doing it for a check because the check ain't that big. We are trying things, and we should be able to be in a space where we can try and fail, and it doesn't mean that the whole culture is now destroyed because we try something. And
Right.
I'll say this, and I'll say this about Good Times. This is the last time I'm gonna mention Good Times. I'm not gonna talk about it no more after today. Um, if a cartoon can threaten our culture in the way that people are talking about, then our culture is very fragile.
Mm.
That's all I got to say.
Mm.
And so let's just be kinder. Let's take some of the vitriolic, divisive nature out of our conversation. Let's give people grace and opportunity to try things, because that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to find ways to tell different stories that are different than what you're normally seeing. And sometimes you're gonna hit it, and sometimes you're gonna miss the mark, and it's okay to miss the mark as well because you learn from that as well. So,
Right.
looking forward to see the next generation of writers do their thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's all I got to say on that. So,
Yeah. Well, Devon Shepard, thank you so
yes, sir.
much for joining. I truly appreciate everything, your knowledge, your expertise, and even your great storytelling. It was truly a
Thank you.
pleasure, and I truly appreciate your time
Thank
and
you so
also
much.
Renata's time. Man, you guys are a wonderful couple, and I truly appreciate the fact that you both were open and willing to speak to me and speak on this platform and be able to speak
Yeah,
your piece about everything that it is that you do.
I'm humbled by it. I'm humbled to do it. Appreciate it too, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Devon Shepard, everybody.